All the second stage tanks now pressurized. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio. Radio with Bite.
Hello and welcome to HBR Talk 368. Actually, I think it's 369. I may not have written that correctly there, but
yeah, I think we're on 369.
369. 369, dude.
Yeah.
That's when you have one every day. UN Women, dialogue for me, STFU for thee. Because of course they want men to shut the fuck up. There's a lot to be talked about, and they don't want to hear it. They don't want to know. They don't want to care. If they do care, it's to be upset and opposed. I'm your host, Hannah Wallen, here with Nonsense Annihilator Lauren Brooks and the personification of perceptivity, Mike Stevenson. And of course, we have the Doge in charge in the background, Brian Martinez, working to make sure we can have both a horizontal and a vertical, and basically doing everything that I was doing to prepare for the show prior to showtime, aside from picking the topic and the information that we're going to go over. So thanks, Doge, for that. And tonight we're still looking into UN women's bullshit. And again, I'm going to say, I know people might get tired of this, but you have to realize this is an organization that informs the creation of law and policy worldwide. And, we've had that conversation where, they don't deserve to be taken seriously because they're not actually officially part of the UN and all that. They influence the UN. They influence research that is used by the UN to influence the creation of law and policy, and they use research to be in communication with the UN to influence the creation of law and policy. And they influence all over Europe. They influence the United States, although probably not right now. Hopefully not right now. But so it's a regular thing. It's not something that isn't under discussion. Actually, I have the wrong screen up right now.
Should we be pushing for UN men to be a thing, or is it more important to just push for the UN not being a thing? I should do this in a Twitter poll, but I'll do it right here, right now with our audience. What do you think we're doing, folks? Do we need a UN men, or do we just not need a UN?
We do not need the UN.
That seems like an obvious question.
You know what it would become? It would become he for she. It would absolutely. That's all that's going to happen with it. It's one of the reasons why I'm of two minds on. There's a lot of MRAs that have been pushing for an equivalent to the U.S. has several agencies, departments, in government organizations, basically for women and girls, and a lot of MRAs are pushing for equal in government representation for men and boys. And if there was a way to inoculate that against becoming a feminist-run, anti-male, he for she, demonizing you as toxic masculinities organization, and government push, I think maybe it might not be so bad. But honestly, it's not. I don't trust it.
Yeah, no, there's no way that is ever going to happen because women's victimhood is monopolized. It's monetized is
Yeah.
actually the word I wanted to say, and there is no money to be made off of protecting men, as we well know.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because it just promotes the idea that men can't be victims of anything, which is absolutely untrue in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
can be
And
victimized for all kinds of reasons. Any people can be victimized in all manner of ways for all manner of reasons. And
Yep.
the idea that only a certain demographic can be victims and another certain demographic cannot be victims, completely fucking wrong-headed.
yeah.
It's an
Very much
overhaul
so.
of whatever system of justice we ever called a system of justice.
Yeah.
Like
And
the
I am
idea
all
that men
for
can never be victimized and women will always be victimized. It's some 1984 shit. It's some post-apocalyptic bullshit. That victimhood is not something that happens to people. It's something that's ingrained in their fucking DNA or some shit. Like, why can't people see through this? I don't even know.
Yeah. And I'm all for equal recognition and equal representation. Those things are very important, in fact. And you look at some of the ways in which men are impacted by issues that people consider to be strictly women's issues, for instance, like domestic violence. When a man is a victim of domestic violence and he suffers not just, like people will minimize what women do in regard to the way that women abuse, right? And I get this argument from feminists all the time. Oh, there's a huge difference between just a slap across the face and a whole beatdown. Like, have you ever been in a fight with a woman? Because I have. And a woman can hand out a whole beatdown and she doesn't even have to be bigger than you, right? In fact, there is an advantage to being the shorter person in a fight. And it's one of the things that I noticed in school. You can see this in Olympic wrestling too. The shorter wrestler has a more solid stance, and because his center of gravity is lower. And
Throughout history, there's been slavery, and slaves have almost always been physically stronger than their masters.
Yep.
Because they are sort of trained and designed from birth to be as strong as possible, so that their masters don't have to be. And you might ask the question, well, why didn't the slaves rise up? If the slaves were stronger than their masters, why didn't they rise up? Because they have been conditioned, mentally and psychologically conditioned, to love their masters, and no matter what happens. You get a lot of these Hollywood depictions of slaves as people who would at the drop of a hat rise up against their masters the moment they had the chance, because they could. But they didn't, because that's how slavery works. These people have been conditioned to not know what the fuck to do without their masters. Like,
yeah, if you don't understand that, read 1984.
Exactly. And when you watch movies like I think it was Django Unchained, where some slave master's carriage was upturned, and so the slaves all went, oh well, now we're free. Now we're going to beat the shit out of these people and run off into the jungle. No, that's not how it worked. Slaves were, like I said, were conditioned to be slaves. They weren't looking for opportunities to revolt against their masters. They were conditioned to defend their masters at any possible point. If anything bad happened to their masters, they would go, oh, we have to save our master, or whatever. Yeah.
All it takes is
Slavery's never been based on physical attributes. It's been based on the ability of the masters to psychologically torture and condition their slaves to not know how to live without their masters. And you see how this works with men and women, right? Yes, men are stronger than women, considerably stronger than women, but they've been conditioned. They've been forced to believe that they couldn't possibly exist without their masters, and we're living with that shit to this day, where men are like, we can't possibly live without women. It's people have done this. They go out into the streets and ask people, and they ask women, do we need? They ask women, do we need men? And they go, no, of course not. All the jobs they do, it doesn't matter. We can do this all by ourselves. Whereas if you ask men, do we need women? They go, oh yes, of course we do. Is it because they give birth? No, it's because women civilized men.
Yeah.
Men don't know what to do without women telling them what to do, and it's such bollocks. Absolute bollocks.
Yeah. All it takes is essentially raising people with no education on how to take care of themselves, how to fend for themselves, how to make themselves able to survive in the world and thrive in the world. And you have a population that can't escape slavery. And I'm descended in part from the race of people from whom the name slave was taken. And that's one that people don't like to acknowledge, that there were slaves that were not from Africa, right? But the original concept existed long before America existed, long before Europe was importing Africans. None of that was the original context of slavery. And throughout history, it's been that way. Allison did a video. I was going to look for it, but I can't think of the name of it. But it was in her threat narrative series on the Ottoman Empire and the Janissaries, and how, like, the Janissaries were slaves. They were not prestigious citizens with freedom that could just do whatever they want. They were slaves, but they were given important tasks and a level of political power, and as a result, they were comfortable with being slaves, and they thought of themselves as the caregivers of their masters, right? And the empire lasted for a huge amount of time, and the system lasted for a huge amount of time because of that. And I think what really saved the American system from lasting like that and oppressing people for so long was the fact that it was so harsh and it was so abusive, and it wasn't entirely based on just teaching the slaves to not be able to figure out how to live without their masters. It was domination techniques were used, weaponry, and so on, and so the level of overt abuse was high enough that it couldn't be forgotten about. And so you at least had some people trying to get away from it because they recognized the system they were in and how bad it was. And you had many people that would have if they could. But in any case, when you look at the system between men and women, gynecentrism and the worldwide promotion of gynecentrism as the only way to live is very similar to the Janissary system. men are obligated socially and legally to not only protect and provide for women under the guise of women and children, but also to sacrifice themselves doing so. Right? To the degree that the average lifespan, even in countries where the economy is good and the medical care system is good, work is safer, and so on, crime is lower, men still live on average 5 years less than women because they are sacrificing themselves. They are working harder, they are working longer, they are working more during the time that they work than women do. They are doing harder jobs. They're doing more dangerous jobs. They're dying in more accidents, and they're committing suicide at a much higher rate than women commit suicide. And before anybody hops in with the, well, women attempt more, the statistic that says that women attempt more is based on presuming all instances of self-injury that, if carried out to their fullest potential, could be fatal as suicide attempts. And I can tell you right now, that's bullshit. There are numerous times when women use threats of suicide as a tool of manipulation, and there are numerous times when they use self-injury as a tool of manipulation. They use it, people will use the term cry for help. Well, it's a cry for help if you have a mental health condition. It's not a cry for help if you're using it to get somebody to feel sorry for you so they'll do what you want. Right? And there are many instances of that are being counted in with, oh, women attempt more. Women don't attempt more. Women pretend to attempt more. But with that said, let me get back to where we were going with this, because I think I didn't do what I got to do before the show. So before we get into the upfront discussion today, let's get into our little spiel. As always, Honey Badger Radio dishes out a smorgasbord of thought-provoking discussions, and as experiences, both recent and long past, have demonstrated, the provoked thoughts are fighting back. They've made it clear that for people like us, relying on third-party payment platforms like Patreon to fund our work is treading on thin ice or building our house in the path of a rapidly growing wildfire. And I said this previously, but y'all, I know I've had some people say, well, you shouldn't be worried about Patreon anymore because Trump made that executive order, but we don't know how that's going to pan out, right? We don't know. Patreon's not a bank. We don't know that they are going to change what they're doing at all. We do know that orders to end DEI policies have been met with resistance by every institution that they've ordered to end those policies. And one of the aspects of that resistance is that they change the name of the policy and continue doing pretty much the same thing. Like, they haven't changed the policy itself. It'd be like if you put a cap on your pickup truck because they outlawed pickup trucks, and this isn't a pickup truck, it's an SUV. It looks like an SUV, see, but it's not. It's a pickup truck, right? Of course, if they ever outlaw pickup trucks, there'll be riots all over the United States. And I'll be right there because I like big trucks and I cannot lie. But but I drive a big van instead, because when you have kids, you need more seats than just two, and they can't be like they can't be short and leg room, and I don't have the money to buy a newer truck. So that's what we bought. But anyway, yeah, we can't necessarily say that just because that order has passed, we suddenly trust all these organizations, that these payment processors that have previously used reputational damage and political correctness as a reason to debank or ban somebody. So we have our own. The most stable way to help us out, rather than going through a third-party payment processor, is to go to feedthebadger.com just feedthebadger.com. If you want to tip us without relying on any social media platforms, tip jar. The link for that is feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And as always, the same risk applies to our social media platforms, even the nice ones, which is why you should further provoke the thought police by tracking our thought-provoking discussions on honeybadgerbrigade.com, where you can find your way to all of our content, as well as a link to feedthebadger.com in the drop-down menu at the top of the page. And I made a note for myself that there is a super chat. Meredith G gave us $5 and said, HBR Talk 369, Honey for the Badgers, off to trivia tonight. We'll catch the show later. That sounds like fun. I would love to sit in and listen. But unfortunately, we're going to be talking about something that is not trivia, and contrary to popular belief, it's not trivial either. I wish it was. I really wish the organization UN Women was as powerless as people think they are, but they're not, because they represent the women's. And when you represent the women's, you have the power. So we stopped last week at the end of this. We were reading these two blue highlighted paragraphs, which are on the screen, about the risk of radicalization and the claims they make here about the manosphere being a rabbit hole to more extreme content. Go to this Institute for Strategic Dialogue, which I've linked to, and we're going to look at a little bit today. And the last paragraph about what they are doing. They're studying the connections between online misogyny and radicalization so they can better respond to risks and prevent violence against women. So they are associating. Yeah. Somebody asked if I did a shorter series on DEI rebranding. I said, oh, I didn't do a whole series necessarily, but we've discussed it a bit. But Kirsha is really somebody that has discussed this extensively. Brian has discussed it on several episodes as well. Like, this has been something that we've all talked about. But I've been watching that VTuber a little bit here and there when I get a chance, and she's interesting. She's got a lot of interesting things to say. So, and I think she got lambasted on X for a while for, I think, just saying that men are not evil. And like some really mundane statement that's like I've been a lot more bitchy toward feminists, and so I expect to get that kind of like pushback, and I do, but she said something completely innocuous. I can't even remember what it was. It was so benign that it didn't stick in my head as a statement that anybody should have gotten up in arms about. And like, not only did X explode with hatred toward her, but she got doxxed and she got heckled for weeks by some asshole that was making account after account to get around blocks and all kinds of stuff. It was quite a ridiculous response, really. But yeah. In any case, so we are going back to the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, the war speech platform, I guess. So remember last week we looked, here is the website for the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. And remember we looked at their What We Do page, and it had a whole bunch of sections, but no actual, it didn't link to anything. But this is essentially their front page, and this is where they have the report. And I opened the report, and we are here at the report. And what I had been looking at before was definitions. But there's some other interesting stuff here that we should be looking at. And they have a plan. So before we get back into the definitions, I gotta show you guys this plan, right? So it says a whole bunch of bullshit, and then in this context, the paper asserts that researching and mitigating risks of OGBV. So OGBV.
OGBV. What the hell?
This is one of the most ridiculous labels, all right? Online gender-based violence.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, okay, here we go.
You know, like that one time I got beat to death by somebody's laptop. I got better. She turned me into a pile of goo. Yeah, online where you don't have to be. Online where you literally cannot touch somebody on the internet. You cannot physically touch somebody on the internet. I can't reach through my computer screen and grab the person at the other end and shake them. Believe me, there are many times when I would. While yelling, so stupid! But no, you can't do that because you're across the country or across the world from each other. You're not in the same room. You're not connected. There's not a portal there that you can stick your hand through. If you do put your hand through the screen of your computer, it's going to hurt. But yeah, online. I can't take this seriously. I have to take this seriously because they're going to make law and policy out of this. Online gender-based violence.
Not gonna. I believe they already have, and it's just again, like I said last week, it's just the trust and safety board that they had on Twitter when it was still called Twitter. And that's where this whole thing, I believe, was generated from. And it's not going away anytime soon. Unfortunately, I don't believe, but we need to know how to swat these flies because they're everywhere, and it's just
Lauren, as Mangaka says in our Rumble chat, point to where the text message touched you.
Yes. It touched me right here in my DMs.
It's going to get to the point where this counts as rape. To the point where a man saying something spicy to a woman counts as rape.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, anything a woman does to a man does not count as rape. I mean, depending on what state you live in or what nation state you live in. And I happen to live in one of those nation states where nothing a woman can ever do to a man or a woman or a child ever counts as rape. Never mind violence. But a man saying, I disagree with what you're saying, counts as rape and violence, and you should go to prison.
But I should highlight, I should, we should bring up the fact that there was a 14-year-old girl who was trying to defend her and her 12-year-old sister from some obviously native Scottish guy.
Yeah, that accent, totally Scottish.
and she's the one that got put in jail. Because
a Bulgarian who has been in the country for 4 years is not an immigrant, I'll have you know.
Yes, 4 years. Yes, words. That makes you born here, right?
Indeed.
Jeez, Pete.
And by the way, that instance was largely instigated by a woman, by the Bulgarian wife of this Bulgarian totally not immigrant. But no one's talking about that. No one's talking about how any of this is instigated by women, immigrant women. No one even talks about immigrant women. Everyone goes on about how these are all fighting age men. No, they're not. Some of them are women and children, and those women and children fucking hate us just as much as the fighting age men do. You can
fighting
hear
age
this.
women.
If you ever talk to some of these female immigrants, they'll fucking tell you, oh, you're all white supremacists and you deserve everything you get. It's just that I'm gonna point my man in the direction of you white supremacists, and it's not my fault. It's never a woman's fault when she uses a man as a weapon, especially not if she's an immigrant woman. Like,
People do not understand this. Honestly, they really don't. Many times I've seen women argue that when women use men for proxy violence, it's the man's fault for doing what the woman wanted him to, right? But what was the first thing out of women's mouths when this incident happened and that video of that girl backing away from a man with a camera going, "Don't fucking touch us," and brandishing weapons? What was one of the first things out of women's mouths all over
why
Europe,
aren't the
United
men
States?
doing something? And it's not
Yeah,
just
where are all
It's-
the men?
it's not just women. It's cucked men who
Yeah.
do this
Yeah.
as well. And I don't even know what the collective word for it is. It's not feminist. It's not leftist. We don't have the sufficient vocabulary to describe this because it happens natively among natives. It happens among immigrants. Women send their men to fight their battles for them.
There are really only two
all over
nations
the
in the
world.
world. This is it. All right, guys. This is wisdom dropping right here. There are two nations in the world. You are either part of one or you are part of the other. Either you are part of Kekistan or you are part of Kukistan. Which is it? And by that I mean, either you know better, you don't ask where are all the men, you recognize what's going on, and you respond to it. And you use humor to get through it, but you still take it seriously. Or you think that the burden should always be on the men. You think that everything should be on men's shoulders. You think that if a woman cries for help, she must be a victim, right? Just because if a woman is a victim, she will cry for help. And not that there's a contest, but points for anybody who can name that fallacy, where you reverse your logic there. But yeah.
Alison made a very good point on Twitter, that it's very likely that incident took place in one of what we call man deserts in the UK. We have whole high rises of single woman families because the men have just been pushed out of those families, even if they wanted to raise the children with all their hearts. The women just told them, no, fuck off. And that's why we have what we call man deserts, these areas of high-rise residences where there's pretty much no men, like, at all, because
a lot of
these are the
council housing.
These are the housing facilities that are given to any woman who wants to raise her children by herself, no matter how attentive their men are. They're just like, no, we don't want men in our lives, and we don't have to have men in our lives because we can get the government to deal with that.
In the US, the equivalent would be Section 8 housing. I don't know what the Canadian equivalent is, but yeah.
So yeah, you've got these man deserts where there are no men except immigrant men because they're living in the hotel down the fucking road. And everyone's going, where are all the men? They're not fucking allowed to be there. They've been fucking kicked out of these communities and told to go fuck off and live in a small flat by themselves and work their ass off for the rest of their lives. So yeah, where are the men? Elsewhere. The women wanted them to be elsewhere because they just don't want men in their lives. They just want to raise their kids by themselves with a lot of help from the government. And they go, oh, who's gonna help me raise my kid? Fucking government. The fucking government is going to help you raise your kids, and they're not going to fucking help you when they get attempted raped by all these totally not Bulgarians.
Yeah.
God.
I've got an answer for the ladies, right? And not for the kids, because the kids didn't do anything to deserve this. They're just born into this situation. Hopefully they will turn it around because they'll realize what a bad situation it is. But a lot of this is generational. They get raised in it and then they perpetuate it. But ladies, adult ladies that are out there going, where are all the men? You know what? Tell it to the bear.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. It's just ridiculous. You created this entire problem because you wanted you to have your own way. And now you got it and you don't like the consequences that came with those decisions. Well, I'm sorry. I am playing the world's smallest fucking violin,
Are you
and
bucks?
yes, I'm all out of fucks.
There will be a song upcoming.
Yes.
We are working on it.
Yeah, but it's just it and they seem so unaware of how these things happen, and oh my god, well but we're women and we should be protected. Well, who the fuck do you think is supposed to protect you, ladies? You threw your natural self-defense out of the house when you decided to opt for the government assistance. And how good are they at assisting you? Sorry, your call is very important to us. Please hang on.
Oh wait, you defended yourself from adults chasing you down with a camera, kid? You're
Yeah.
under arrest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what fucking adults chase a 12-year-old with a camera?
I'm
Right?
telling you,
Like,
we don't, I guess we don't know enough about the situation. I
no.
apparently
All right,
Mike knows a little bit more, but
if she
um,
wasn't stealing the hubcaps off of their car or physically assaulting them in a moment, they have no business even whipping out that camera.
right.
But once she's backing off and running away from them, they absolutely have no business pursuing her.
Yeah.
Go
These
file a
things
police report.
these things are usually filmed by passerbys who happen to see it and happen to whip their camera out and go, "Oh, this is going to be incriminating for someone else." And I think this is what happened this time. But like,
No, the camera angle.
That
It
viral
seems like
video.
the man was filming. Actually,
Yeah, it could only have been filmed by this Bulgarian couple in question, and presumably it was them who uploaded it to the internet because they thought it was going to work out well for them. They thought it was going to be like, oh, look at these Scottish kids attacking us with knives and hatchets. This is a perfect example of how oppressed we are as totally not Bulgarian immigrants.
yeah.
Like they uploaded the evidence that incriminated them. And at the same time, I'm trying not to just side with the girls just because they're girls. In the same way, I'm trying not to side with the immigrants just because they're immigrants. But as we've seen over the past few days, this is native girls and immigrant anyone's jockeying for position at the top of the progressive stack, while everyone blames British men for everything that's going on. Now this is white girls and brown men fucking trying to see who has the best victim points, who has the best oppression points, and who gets blamed for it. Us, fucking white British men, all because they know they can do this. This is a fucking game they play. Fucking white women and brown men. And they're just like, we all want to be the top of the stack. We all want to have the maximum victim points, and we're all just gonna see what we can do to force British men to do what we want them to do, either defend white girls or defend brown men. There's sort of That's all they're interested in. It's that what can British men do for us? That's what they're both saying. Like, we're trying to rape
Well, they
each
want
other.
all
We're
your money.
trying to hack each other to death with hatchets and machetes. And I'm like, what are you British men going to do for us? I'm like, we were never involved. This is women and immigrants fucking fighting each other for the throne. And the only reason they can get away with it, the only reason they can get away with it is because they have a peasant class to exploit along the way. Like,
There's been
who do you favor?
of
Who do you favor, Western man? Fucking Western women or Eastern men? I'm at this point where I'm like, fucking go for it. Fucking hack at each other with hatchets and knives. Go for it. I'm
Fuck
sick
you,
of
bloody, you fucking no, fuck you, bloody.
You
Look.
blunder, bitch. And I'm like, yeah, no, fucking kill each other. I'm sick of it. Fucking kill each other. I'm not going to jump in to try and save anyone.
No.
We've seen what happens. We've seen the fucking Daniel Perry bullshit. Why don't you jump in and save him? Because we'll get arrested. Because we'll get arrested and thrown in prison for fucking 3 years. And we're fucking sick of it.
You
Like,
damn.
That is if you don't get killed in the process.
Right, right.
Because you are dealing with people who are coming from a violent environment, which means that they are more practiced at violence than you are.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone is more practiced at violence than you are, whether it's in aggression or self-defense, if they decide they're going to attack you, they already have an advantage. But I have to point out, because this is something that isn't talked about very much, the majority of victims in the UK of these kinds of violent acts, not this specifically being chased down and filmed, but the increased violence that has been taking place in conjunction with the mass migration that has been taking place, the bigger set of victims has actually been boys. It's just not getting discussed. And I shout out to Lisa Britton on X for pointing that out, because she did. And there's been people talking about it now under her thread, and interestingly, she's getting some pushback because it's like, well, what about the men's? What about the men's? But the reality is, if it's happening to them more, then yeah, it is something that you should be asking. Hey, what about this? This is important too. This is something that is actually a bigger deal. And because they're not getting the sympathy and compassion that girls are getting, which is lower than it should be, considering the situation, they're really not getting the help that they need. They're not getting protection. They're not getting assistance as crime victims. They're just getting the shaft, and in more ways than one. And that does need to be talked about. That is an important factor, and it is something that tells you a lot about society. That just the bringing that up, the act of bringing up that is happening, gets people angry. Why are you deflecting from what's happening to girls? You can't have sympathy for kids of both sexes. And if Axe Girl was a boy, would you just not care about the situation?
No, there would be rounds of applause for him going to jail if that was a boy. They would do everything in their power to make sure that he gets the maximum sentence, because how dare you do that? Oh, he must be a racist.
Yep. He'd be just another violent British boy carrying weapons around, waiting to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And it's worth pointing out that the little girl was arrested.
Yeah,
for
she was.
brandishing these
Yeah.
I don't know how it's possible to arrest I think she was a 14-year-old girl for doing that sort of thing. But even after that happened, everyone blamed men for it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, men get blamed. Native men get blamed for the crimes of everyone else, and that does include little white girls brandishing deadly weapons. That is a crime. It is technically a crime. I don't like that it is, but it's Britain, and you're not even allowed to walk around with a fucking spoon or a potato peeler. It's technically a crime. And yes, this little girl did get arrested and could go on to get prosecuted, whatever that means.
She could get prosecuted.
But at the same time, the international community is blaming men for this. That's what I mean. Yeah, even when women commit crimes, or little girls commit crimes, men get blamed for it. When brown men commit crimes, fucking British men get blamed for it. Like these two demographics jockeying for the top of the progressive stack. No matter what they do, native men get blamed for it. And maybe this is why the situation isn't improving, because you'll blame anyone but the people fucking doing these crimes.
Or the government, or the governments that are allowing this type of thing to fucking happen in the first place.
True. And of course, it's not like it's instrumental, right? If they allow this kind of thing to happen, and then they allow people to be in a situation where they have to respond to it or get harmed in some way or another, it's not instrumental for them to, have these situations that they can then turn around and say, we're going to pass a law. Oh, wait, yeah, it is. In fact, when they don't have one, they make shit up, create fictional stories, and run 4-part series on Netflix and then talk about them in Parliament like the incident really happened. Albatross gave us $5 and said, "What are the migraines?" I hope that was a top typo, but if it wasn't, that was glorious. What are the migraines offering to the UK government that makes throwing kids under the bus worth it? Well, first of all, what you have to understand is those aren't the government's kids, and they don't care. So those kids, to them, those are pawns or lower than pawns. They are disposable. They can be used for whatever purpose the government wants. All right. And these types of incidents, it's much like mass shootings in the United States, including mass shootings, violent crime in the United States, which is presumed to be one of the most violent countries in the world, even though there's not a civil war going on here. There is, but it's not the level of civil war that is in nations where you have constant gunfire in the streets and people fleeing the country to get away from it and stuff like that. It's mostly memes on the internet and the occasional peaceful protest where the left burns down some neighborhood because they're mad about something that didn't happen there. Which makes all of the sense in the world if you are an American. But including mass shootings, right? A fraction of 1% of the U.S. population commits violent crimes. It's something like 0.7% commits violent crimes a year. So the idea that it's a gloriously violent place, well, it depends on what city you go to, what neighborhood and what city. If you're not in one of the neighborhoods where people are killing each other over their sneakers or drugs, then you're not going to see it, right? But these types of incidents are exploited by the government, by the establishment media, by in general the establishment, entertainment, media, and social media, everything, as a means to facilitate narratives that then go on to facilitate legislation, getting legislation passed that takes away some civil right that up until that point was valued and protected, and you couldn't get people to give it up. But then some kid who has been failed by every adult in his life explodes outward instead of imploding. And instantly you have every talking head on social media. This is the inanimate object is to blame. It has nothing to do with the culture. It has nothing to do with the lack of good parenting. It has nothing to do with problems in the education system. It has nothing to do with any victimization this person might have experienced. This person hasn't been, programmed. This person didn't start out mentally ill. Nope, it's the inanimate object that caused this problem. And therefore, even though you didn't commit this crime, we want to take away your ability to possess this inanimate object. And, that worked in the UK. And it's worked in numerous countries.
Australia.
Right? Where Australia, yep, New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
That's all over the world. There are countries where people have said, yeah, we'll give up our ability to defend ourselves if somebody breaks into our homes. We'll give up our ability to defend ourselves if an angry mob comes to our community and starts setting everything on fire. Right? And now you're in a situation where little kids, like a 12-year-old kid, is getting arrested for defending against being aggressively pursued and filmed by two adults. And I don't care what happened before that. If you're an adult and the person that you're mad at is 12 and that person is backing away from you and trying to escape the situation, and you chase that person down and get right up in their face with a camera, you are the aggressor. Mm-hmm. There is something wrong with you. That is a kid. If that person backs away, you back away. If that person is trying to extract themselves from the conflict, you shut the fuck up and back off. And if you really feel like something needs to be done because this is an unruly child or whatever, you call the cops. That's it. That's all you do. You don't grab, you don't film, you don't reach out, you don't chase. Unless they stole something from you or assaulted you, you have no business doing that. That's a kid. That's somebody else's kid.
This situation,
you can damn well bet if that had been my kids in that situation, there would have been blood.
Oh, hell yeah. And this is the epitome of victim blaming.
Mm-hmm.
Feminists love to, use that terminology. And this is actually a situation where it applies. And no, what are we doing? We're finding they are bending over backwards trying to find ways to blame men for this situation. And while the person that she was running away from was obviously a man, he is the one that is to blame. And no one wants that. We just don't.
Well, him and the wife.
Yes, yeah.
And see, that's the thing. One of the things that I've seen and heard from several people closer to the situation has been that this was initiated and pushed by the wife. And so this was proxy violence. And I'm sure that if he hadn't done what he did, he probably would have got an earful from her. Not that it excuses him, not that it excuses his behavior at all.
They probably weren't even attempting to rape or sexually assault these girls. They just.
I hope not.
I hope not. Well, couples.
Don't. Well,
I don't know what couples are into.
Couples don't, because that does happen.
I think they were probably filming them because they were like, "Look at these Scottish girls, fucking wandering around. One of them's wearing booty shorts." The stories that's come out. The story that has come out is that there was a conflict between the woman and the mother, the immigrant woman and the mother, and it escalated into involving the three girls. Which, that's the other thing. If those had been my kids, they would have been behind me.
So there's some criticism I have there, and I have no idea where that mother was in that moment, but she wasn't in the video. So,
But
but
yeah,
in
I
any
think
case, yeah, it's
I think
it's
this was just a Bulgarian couple just wandering around Dundee. I don't know what the fuck they're doing in Dundee, but they saw some Scottish girls and they went, "Let's film them. Let's see what they do." Oh no, they look defensive. Oh shit! One of them just pulled out fucking machete and a hatchet. This is awesome.
Out of her pants.
yeah.
That was
We're
Well,
fucking
gonna
there's
awesome.
also
we're
been
gonna
some
put this on
explanation
the
that
internet and it's gonna go viral.
viral.
Like I don't think they were trying to fucking rape anyone. Not that there aren't a bunch of immigrants trying to rape everyone, even from Bulgaria. I think Bulgaria is a largely Muslim country at this point. A lot of Southeast European countries are majority
Yeah. So they
Muslim at
might have
this
just
point.
been trying to shame them for not being
Yeah,
Muslim, but it
and
doesn't matter
they got
because
they got the footage they were looking for. They were like,
yeah.
look, these Scottish girls are needlessly defensive. Why
Well,
on earth are they carrying these weapons? What motive could they possibly have for carrying these weapons? They must.
Yeah, the
They
bottom
must have.
line is
They
you
must.
don't go around filming other people's kids.
well,
Period.
all right. So if I could just, I'm working off of assumption here, and based off of what she said she's fucking 12 years old and you battered me. So I would assume from listening to that there had been a previous interaction between the two, maybe
Yeah.
not with the wife, but with the man. And maybe he assaulted them before. It doesn't
Well,
seem like this was the first time that they had an interaction. And
according to the Give Send Go, the couple both assaulted the 14-year-old, the older girl.
mhm.
So there's actually, let me see if I can find it, and I will.
Yeah, I would really love to see that because everybody, we watched it on another channel, and they couldn't understand the Scottish accent, and
Yeah.
I'm sitting here like I can clearly understand what she's saying. She's saying, my sister, she's 12, she's fucking 12 years old, and you battered me. So it gave to me, it gave the impression that exactly what I just said, that there was a previous interaction.
Yeah. So
Someone
here you
had
go.
assaulted her.
There is an account, Aesthetica on X that is close to the family. Posted a link to the Give Send Go. I've got it on my desktop computer. My way of transferring it is I'm going to post it in our chat, and
Okay.
then I'll open it on the screen. But let's see here. We have
They do have migrant
Send them
hotels in Scotland, by the way. I talked about this.
There we
Not
go.
even last year, like earlier this year. That even in small towns in Scotland, they have what we call migrant
Yeah,
hotels.
they have
And
them
this is
here
in.
too.
I'm not gonna dox my family as to exactly where in Scotland they live, but it's it's in a not particularly urban region of Scotland, and Dundee is not a particularly urban region of Scotland. It's quite far north, quite far into the wasteland that is the north of Scotland.
Yeah.
But I even up in the wastelands of northern Scotland, they have migrant hotels, like all over the country. Their hotels are just being filled with these foreign rapists. Let's call them what they are. And yeah, people are starting to feel it. And I guess in the same way, people are on their guard even if people haven't been raped yet. But
Yeah,
Why
there's
wouldn't you?
also
You should be on your guard to prevent the rapes from happening in the first place, and that's probably why parents are telling their children to be on the lookout for these foreign rapists who are being put up in
there's
hotels.
also another contributing factor that can happen that can make you defensive when you're approached by a couple of people or more, and that is how they approach, right?
Mhm.
If somebody's walks up to you with more of a friendly posture where they're just standing there, maybe they have their hands in view, they're not filming you, and they're asking a question. Hey, can you tell me how to get to burger joint with whatever name down this neighborhood somewhere that I must be on the wrong street, whatever. Like that's one thing, right? But if a couple of people approach you and they're filming and maybe they split up and one is a little bit distant from the other one, so that they're flanking you or anything like that, you get defensive, right? Especially if they are, they have anything in common with people that have been aggressive towards you in the past. And my understanding from reading the conversation that took place under the post that I just clicked on to get to this, Aesthetica's posts, they've been attacked by migrants before. They've had problems.
Mhm.
This
See?
isn't their first rodeo with
Yeah.
migrants. So they have experienced some aggression in the past. And like I can sympathize with that, right? Because like I said, I grew up in a neighborhood where this was fighting like that was not abnormal. Having an axe and a knife was abnormal. We just used our fists most of the time or big sticks and stuff. Although I did have somebody hit me in the eye with a rock once. But there was one day that I ended up in a fight in another community with like 5 or 6 other girls. And the reason that I knew a fight was coming was because when they started to approach me, they fanned out so that none of them was within, 2 feet of the other. And except for the first 2 directly in front of me, they stood too close together, and that was kind of their downfall. But they sort of half surrounded me. And when somebody starts doing that they are not planning to ask you directions to a burger joint down the street,
Yeah.
right? So it depends. We don't know how these girls were approached, but their reaction doesn't indicate that they were merely asked for directions or some innocent shit like that. So according to the Give, Send, Go, while walking in their local community, they were accosted by 2 adult foreign nationals. And the age is here, all right? Lola, 12. That's the girl with the, I believe, with the axes.
No, I think that was
Ruby,
the one with the little shorts on, because the one that had the weapons, a knife and a hatchet on her. She was obviously the older sister, or one of
well,
the older sisters.
no, she
I
was
didn't
the
real.
younger sister. She
Oh,
was the one.
really?
Yeah, the older sister was yelling, "There, she's 12. Leave her alone. She's 12." But yeah, and the pictures. I love all the pictures and everything. They have her in a very aggressive stance here, though. And if you see the video, she's standing sort of hunched forward and holding the weapons in front of her. And I mean, it's a stance that shows intent to use the weapons, but it's not an aggressive stance. It's a fearful stance.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that stance before too, like up close and personal. So I wasn't always alone when I got into fights when I was growing up. A lot of times there was a friend there with me, or my brother would be with me, and yeah, that's a very familiar stance. And it's her stance was not this stance. This is beautiful, but it's not what happened.
Yeah.
This was a scared kid. And like I said, if this was a boy, I'd be saying the same thing.
Hmm.
If this was a boy, the outcome probably would have been significantly worse.
Oh yeah.
The adults might have even felt like they could get away with engaging in violence, and not just aggression. So it says they were accosted by 2 adult foreign nationals. The foreign nationals were directing inappropriate sexual remarks at Lola. When Lola and her sister told the migrants to leave them alone and go away, Ruby was viciously attacked by the adult female, yanked to the ground by her hair, and both migrants
Jesus.
proceeded to kick Ruby in the head on the ground. Seeing her sister being beaten senselessly on the ground, Lola retrieved an axe and a knife and bravely scared off the attackers, saving her sister. This is when the foreign national decided to film the aftermath, which went viral on social media. In the video, you can hear Lola telling the attackers to go away and leave her sister alone. Ruby was hospitalized after the attack with a severe concussion, a tennis ball-sized lump on the back of her head, as well as lots of bruises. Unfortunately, rather than arrest the attackers, the local police decided to arrest Lola instead. By the way, female police chief, female second in command. Yep. And we set up this campaign because, like millions of others who saw the video and have now heard Lola and Ruby's story, we were astonished at the incredible bravery from such a young child. She became the hero for a nation that for too long has seen their cries of help go unheard. And of course, Lola fearlessly stood on her own, standing up to her sister's attackers, and now she needs help to stand up to the corrupt law establishment that would rather go after victims than hold migrants accountable for their crimes. So the only thing that I would correct is obviously she wasn't fearless; she was courageous, and there is a huge difference, right?
Yes.
Fearlessness means that you're not smart enough to know when you're in danger, okay? But courage is when you do shit that needs to get done, even when you're scared out of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's courage. Being fucking ready to pass out scared and still doing what needs to be done. Knowing that you can get hurt, knowing that you're probably going to suffer some sort of consequences for what you're doing, and doing it anyway because you can't abide the consequences of not doing it.
Yeah.
Courage runs into a fire because they value what's in there more than they are worried about the pain from getting burned, not because they don't think they will. But in any case, so where all of this leads back to, right? We have all this talk about online violence against. Here we are talking about real life violence against a real life person who happens to be a girl, but from the statistics that I'm hearing out of the UK, it was this kind of thing is happening more to boys than to girls, and they're less protected in terms of being able to defend themselves, being allowed to defend themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this discussion about online gender-based violence is part of an effort to silence criticism of policy that essentially its goal is to reduce your due process rights and to take your money to fund organizations that don't necessarily do anything to benefit the people that they are claiming to help. And so my big problem with it is it gets used for all the wrong reasons. Right? You can't talk about this stuff because that's online gender-based violence. You can't criticize when people like the female in the couple start fights with children and then drag their husband into it. Right? Can't do that. So that's violent. Criticizing this woman that did this is violent. And of course, criticizing this man for going along with it is violent too, because it's racist, right? But he's obviously so cucked that he lost all of his judgment. Like, what man doesn't know that if you chase down a kid and you're filming a kid, that you're going to get pushback from the locals? I don't believe there's any culture anywhere in the world that the local population wouldn't respond badly to that, or at least angrily, right? But this paragraph, in this context, the paper asserts that researching and mitigating the risks of online gender-based violence can enable earlier warning of and intervention in misogynistic pathways to different forms of violent extremism. So what do they mean here? We want to police what people are saying on the internet because we believe that this speech connects people with other people who might have the same objections to the same policy overreaches. And if they band together and make those objections in mass, we're in trouble. Right? Reiterating that any mitigation of risks must come in support of users' fundamental rights, including their right to privacy and freedom of expression. The paper proposes the following key recommendations. So here's what they want to do to your social media so that you don't talk about incidents like this in a way that might challenge the power of your national governments to create more circumstances like this. First of all, they want to access publicly available data for public interest research. So they want the systematic collection of publicly available data via access to application programming interfaces, which would be x.com is an application. The programming interface would be the programming that allows you to use X to communicate with other people. So they want access to the publicly available data that comes from your interactions. But in any case, it can help. It says digital, ethnographic, and other research methods. We just went from gender-based violence to ethnographic. Okay. So all of a sudden, we're no longer talking about gender. Or we might be, but I kind of suspect that this is eventually going to become a you can't talk about migrants in your country thing, right? But look at how that wedge works. Women and girls are in danger. We have to do this research. We got to figure out how to protect women and girls from online virus or violence. By the way, don't say anything about the illegal migration into your country, because you're bad if you do that.
Or the offline violence that happens as a result.
Yeah. Ethnographic, by the way, is it's sort of a study or description, a scientific way of talking about various nationalities, various people from the perspective of looking at like what's their culture, what's their ethnicity, what is their what is their culture basically? What do they do? What's different between them and say the next group of people? And so it really is. It's not. It's a jump from misogyny to talking about this, and they did it so smoothly in this one paragraph, right? And the next thing is platforms should enable access to continuous real-time or near real-time searchable APIs to allow vetted researchers. Okay, we have to stop there for a second, right? Vetted. Meaning feminist approved, UN women approved. or ISD global approved. Right. So where are we here again? The Institute for Strategic Dialogue. Institute for Strategic Dialogue approved researchers. And remember, we looked last week at their goals and their interests, and they are woke. So woke approved researchers. In other words, they aren't going to be letting Alex Jones look at this stuff. Right? They aren't going to be let any of the journalists that say Newsmax or Fox News or any of the newer right-wing media that has cropped up. They're not going to be looking at it. They're not going to get access to this until it's published. Nope.
No,
Real-time or near real-time searchable APIs to allow woke vetted researchers.
Yeah, because anyone else might actually tell the truth.
Mm-hmm. I bet they won't even make this available to Pew Research. Because they're not woke. They're neutral. To allow these researchers to study the evolving tactics and forms of online gender-based violence. I'm going to gag every time I say that. As well as the links between online misogyny, radicalization pathways, and violent extremism. So we're back to misogyny, guys. And as we go through here, they're going to flip back and forth, right? This is about using that little wedge, tap, tap, tap. Let's open up your boundary there and get you to accept. We need this invasiveness. We need to be studied in how we talk to each other and labeled for how we talk to each other to protect the women so that nobody can criticize the great replacement that's not happening, right? Yeah. For example, such access could support longitudinal studies of in-group gender norms and behaviors over time. Meaning they will talk about how red pill communities prefer the leave it to beaver life, and consider that to be tradition. And they will talk about how maybe the men's rights community has started talking about maybe bring back dowry for a lot of different reasons, including you actually start out better in a marriage if you start that marriage with a nest egg, and well, the guy is tasked with spending all of his money dating. Like the gal has an opportunity to actually save up some money and bring that nest egg in. It would be a very beneficial thing. Like if our family had started out that way, my husband and me, things would have been 100 times easier for us. We went through some tough times because we were broke all the time. But if instead of basically being a normal American teenager, I had put maybe 3/4 of every paycheck into a trust that couldn't be accessed until I presented a marriage certificate. And then once I got married, that was our money to start our family with. Things would have been significantly easier. My life would probably be longer too. My husband's life would be longer. Like we probably both have taken years off of our life working to make up for not having that. So it's not just a matter of treating women like they don't bring any value to the marriage. Like this is something that women could do. We live in a time when at the age of 16, a girl can start working and she can make as much as a boy can make at that age. Right? She can work as much as a boy can work at that age. And she could build up a nest egg. And it should be on the girl. Because it's not like back in the day when dowry was a thing where, the reason for it was because she couldn't work. If you're not married, there's no reason why you can't have a job. If you don't have kids, there's no reason why you can't have a job. There's no reason why a girl can't work 4 to 6 to even 8 years before she gets married and sock that cash away. And then when she finally ties the knot, there's your down payment on a house.
Yep.
Right? Every girl should be getting encouraged to do that. Right? Parents of Gen Alpha that are listening, that your girls aren't old enough to start working yet. Now's the time to start instilling that in their heads. Because, when your kids grow up, you worry like hell. They leave the house and they're on their own and you can't protect them anymore because they're making their own decisions because they're adults. And they're going through whatever they go through, and all you can do is be there as best you can. Wouldn't it be nice if you got your daughter to prepare ahead of time so that the first few years of her married life would not be dead broke? And you would not have to worry. And it shouldn't be on mom and dad to do that. If she starts having those habits, starts understanding the value of money by earning it and socking it away and preparing, and understanding the value of work by doing the work for that, and understanding her value as a laborer, and also understanding the value of not having to do that. Like, then her decisions after that, her lifestyle after that, everything she does in her adulthood will be affected by that. It will be improved by that. She will be better prepared for the rest of her adult life if you get your daughter prepared to do that before she gets married. To build herself a dowry to take into that marriage with her. So, and yeah, I know Mangaka says she'll try to use it to buy Chad. I don't know about that. When you have that degree of responsibility for yourself and you are taught to play the long game of, I'm going to do all this work now and I'm going to sock away the overwhelming majority of the rewards for it for a later time, and I know it's there and I can't touch it until I meet this condition, you're going to know I worked for all that money and that's my nest egg. You're not going to settle for just any guy. You're not going to settle for a guy just because he's attractive. The other aspect of that is you teach your daughter to make connections with people on the basis of character and personality, shared values, and shared interests. If you want your daughter to be still married when she's my age and old enough to be a grandma, you teach her that. Your daughter will seek the type of man you teach her to seek. But going on, vetting processes of researchers should be inclusive to enable interdisciplinary research. Right? So that's coded. I'm not even going to entertain the idea that it's not. Interdisciplinary is the term that is used today for women's studies. Years ago, they started out, there was a class, one class. We went over this on HBR Talk a while back. when we looked into an article that traced the creation of the actual area of academic study. And gender studies as a class, a coursework, was invented, made up in Australia. That was where the first ones existed. And it was imported to the United States by feminist journalists and professors, basically. And they didn't go just to universities and be like, yeah, we've got this course of study that you can, offer this course to students, and the universities are like, yeah, we're going to do that. They went to the Ford Foundation, and, they went to, I can't think of the Carnegie. They went to the Carnegie Foundation. They went to all those guys. They got money from banks, donations from banks, and they really built it up, and then went through an advocacy process to sort of browbeat one university into adopting it, and then another, and then within a few years they had 3,000. And before it became an area of study, it was just one course. You took women's studies as a class, and that was it. That was the whole thing. And then over time, that got expanded into several, like 101, 202, 303, and so on. 404, intelligence not found. Women's studies coursework, and then they started expanding more and started calling it gender studies. And they started to pretend to include studies on men and masculinity, and the concept of, something called curiarchy, which is essentially patriarchy, but with extra steps, where they recognize that most men don't have the power that is attributed to them by the patriarchy theory that feminists made up. And now they have masculinity studies as part of gender studies, right? Well, then they wanted to start branching out into, we want this as part of the field of sociology. We want this as part of the field of psychology. We want this as part of the field of business management. That's where your human resources department comes from. We want this to be included in the arts. And we want this to be included in, like, you can't go to a physician. You can't go get treated by a physician that has not had some coursework influenced by what started out as women's studies. And it is now called interdisciplinary studies. And they incorporated all forms of oppression. It is the progressive stack studies, woke studies, basically. So essentially, if you want to talk about issues affecting people who are born in poverty, women's studies, except that they call it interdisciplinary studies now. If you want to talk about issues affecting people who were born with brown skin, interdisciplinary studies. You want to talk about issues affecting people who were born with a severe or profound disability, interdisciplinary studies. So when they say to enable interdisciplinary research, that is, again, like, they're sort of coding this as it has to be woke. But what they're outwardly saying is we want to include, different academic areas, computational linguistics, critical terrorism studies, critical studies on men and masculinities. All of these are things that are completely unrelated to each other, completely. But they're going to link them in order to claim that men having conversations online about interests and issues that affect them and that pertain to them constitutes extremism, and preparation for terrorism. And right now, the target is men talking about being discriminated against in family court and in criminal court, talking about being taxed to pay for women's stupid choices, right? Talking about being demonized by the establishment using the hasty generalization of the less than 1% of the population that commits violent crime to the entire male population, as if the rest of the male population is responsible for their behavior. They can't talk about that. That's online gender-based violence. You are criticizing the women's if you talk about that, right? You are criticizing the women's if you talk about being discriminated against in your workplace because they have an affirmative action policy for women. You're criticizing the women's if you don't want to be completely alienated from your kids so that they grow up from the age of like 6 years old until adulthood without even knowing you anymore. That's terrorism right there. How dare you? They also want, oh yes, as well as recognizing the value of comparative research across different ideologies, local contexts, and languages. So they want this everywhere. They want this worldwide. They want this in your neighborhood. And, they want whatever your belief system is, whether you are woke, whether you are not woke, whether you're anti-woke, whether you're religious, anti-religious, not religious, don't give a flying fuck about religion. They want your group of people included in this. And then they want to prevent anybody from making money off of this. So while API access requires some form of vetting to prevent malicious or commercial uses, access should be free or at nominal cost for researchers. So as long as you say you're a woke researcher, you should be able to get it without having to reimburse the company or the people whose data you're taking. But if you're not a woke researcher, if you're a news organization wanting to fact check the woke researchers, then you should pay through the nose. And then they want your social media to report on you. So researchers should be able to track and scrutinize the things that you say online for the scope and scale of online gender-based violence.
So stupid. So fucking stupid.
You guys, last week I got bit by a dead meme. You gotta know. The reason I'm having these outbursts is because I'm slowly turning into an internet zombie.
Well, I have a vaccine injury, so I'm not.
Yeah. There we go.
Not to blame for anything that comes out of my mouth.
Yes. And they want control over how community guidelines are enforced. Guess why? Can you guess? Can you guess what social media site prompted that?
I could think of a couple.
Was it Reddit? It was Reddit, wasn't it?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
No, they have control over how guidelines at Reddit are enforced already. But feminists do not control Rumble. They don't control X. They don't control Gab. And they don't control Truth Social.
Truth Social.
Right? Yeah. was the other one? Parler. They don't control Parler. Is
Parler.
Parler still around? I haven't
I
been
have
on there in
no
like forever.
Yeah. I haven't been on there forever.
I need to go and look, but I'm not going to do that now, right? But they can't rein in Elon Musk. His is the one that's big, that's popular, that everybody uses, right? They can't force him to impose the rules that they want imposed. They can't make him silence people for criticizing, for instance, the UK arresting people for flying the UK flag on their property because it's offensive to certain non-residents, which makes no sense to me. California does that too, though.
Foreign nationals. That is the
foreign nationals.
That is the agreed upon politically correct term for those people. Foreign nationals, which is just stupid on the face of it. You're foreign, but you're a part of the nation state. No, doesn't fucking work. Does not compute. Sorry.
Yeah, just for the record, when I go to Calgary next month, I do not expect to see the U.S. flag flown everywhere, and it would be kind of weird because we haven't annexed Canada
yet.
So y'all know Canada used to be part of Ohio, right?
What?
Actually, the true story is that
it's all Ohio. It's all Ohio.
One of the things that pissed off the colonists in the U.S. was a redrawing of borders between the U.S. and Canada, in which the U.K. Gave Ohio to Canada. It made Ohio part of Canada. But since I am an Ohioan, and it is all Ohio, from my perspective, Canada used to be part of Ohio. They just called it Canada because it would hurt their feelings if they had to call themselves Ohio.
All your base belong to us.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
But no violence, guys. Do not set up us the bomb. In any case, yeah, this online gender-based violence wedge is being used to try to rein in Musk's refusal to silence critics of the British government. And next we have platforms should develop enforcement reports. They don't just want control. They want reports.
God.
You have to. I wonder if it has to have a cover page, and if you fail to include the cover page, are your 8 bosses going to show up?
Yeah. Double spaced.
Yeah. To include gender segregated data referring to statistical data in relation to community guideline violations. So they want to know how many men say mean words on the internet that women are offended by, and so on. For example, platforms processing of and reporting on hate speech violations should include data on whether the violation was on the basis of gender and other intersecting protected characteristics to allow intersectional analysis of the motivations driving online gender-based violence. Yep. TPS report. I think that making you file a report periodically to inform UN women as to how many people you had to put in Twitter jail for calling each other retarded is violence.
Yes, that is violence.
Like, what the fuck? Platforms should work toward standardization of transparency reporting through the development of a set of common metrics and content categories, meaning whatever Facebook is doing, Twitter has to do it, Parler has to do it, Gab has to do it, Rumble has to do it, YouTube has to do it. If you create a brand new social media type of, new format, some way of posting or another that's different from what everybody else is doing, you got to do it. If MySpace still exists, they got to do it. If LiveJournal still exists, they got to do it. That's an old one. For the kids, before there was social media, people had
day.
Everybody had blogs. Yeah. Oh, geez, oh, Pete. I think LiveJournal predates MySpace. I might be backwards on that.
I've never used LiveJournal, but I'm very curious now to know if MySpace still exists. I'm pretty sure it does.
Well, it's an easy way to find out here.
Yes.
It does. Last I saw, it was almost entirely about promoting your band.
Wow.
But yeah, there you go.
Oh
MySpace.
my god.
Which means my cheesy, cringeworthy MySpace page is probably still there.
Oh, so is mine. Oh, Jesus.
I literally
Christ.
haven't. I don't know my password. I haven't
Me
even
neither.
been on there in like.
I mean,
MySpace in 15 years.
The email that I have associated with it is probably like 8 emails ago. Like, it's
yeah. But I mean, I know. Technically, we don't have a band.
Yeah, well,
so, yeah,
we could.
Yeah, we could. That's true. Practice would be online violence. Oh, geez. But yeah, so here we go. It has everybody that does this has to do it the same way. Has to be the same whenever possible to allow for comparison and tracking of policy violations across platforms, which means they would have to have standardized policies. You can't have standardized reporting if your policies differ.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, MySpace Tom is probably still my friend. Tom is the most loyal man on the planet. I wonder if they still have the same picture up for him. That's funny.
I'd love that picture of him. It's just
yeah. For example, standardized reporting should disclose the proportion of image-based versus text-based content that violated hate speech policies. So, do you know what this is about? Can anybody guess what this is about? Disclosing the proportion of image-based versus text-based content that violated speech policies.
Oh.
What are they going to police?
Everything. Your videos, your pictures, everything.
They are going to police memes.
Memes. Jesus Christ.
Like the thought police are coming for your memes.
Get a fucking life. My
Don't you come for my memes. I'm going to meme your granny.
Good Lord. I would love to see their explanation for the infamous Janet Bloomfield cake post.
Oh my God. Yeah, for those that don't know, we had a compatriot, a colleague at A Voice for Men, who was very in your face, and pun intended, because she started a hashtag shoot a feminist in the face in response to hashtag kill all men.
Mm.
Right? Hers was a sarcastic thing. It was not serious. Hashtag kill all men never started out as a joke. Feminists lied about that. It was always, a way for feminists to bash men, right? And the only time that she ever tweeted to it was the assertion that she would handle a break-in to her place with violent self-defense. I think I tweeted it that once, actually, because I threatened. Somebody said they were going to come and get me at my place, and I was like, I will take your picture. I will shoot a feminist in the face with my. I think I had a Nikon D100. It's so long ago. I don't even know what they're up to in the prosumer camera now. A D100 was their 2000. I want to say 2002 or 3. 6 megapixel single lens reflex prosumer camera. And I have still got it somewhere. I own a $1,500 brick because you really can't do anything with 6 megapixels now. But you can. It's just that there's so much better out there. But in any case, yeah, I got suspended for threatening to photograph someone if they broke into my house.
That is
because I tweeted it to hashtag shoot a feminist in the face.
That is online gender-based violence, Miss Hannah. We cannot have that. I'm going to report you to the gender police.
My vice principal, when I was in. Now, see, the D1 was much more expensive. I had the D100. The D100 was more prosumer. The D1 was a professional camera. Like the D100 cost like $1,500 with lenses. The D1 was like $3,000 just by itself. But yeah, Art Force mentioning the other old camera. They had the D1 and I believe the D1X. I used to sell those. I did a lot of different jobs. So that one was a fun job because I loved what I was selling, and so it was fun to talk to the customers about their work and my work and what they might use for their work and what I had used for mine and how it worked out for me, and what that might indicate about what they might want to get, and stuff like that. Like, oh yeah, I've tried this, it works this way, and that kind of thing. It's fun to be able to sell something that you use and you enjoy using, and it makes it a lot easier to help people find the thing that's going to work for them. But in any case, yeah. So the got this again, UN Women and the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. The Institute for Strategic Dialogue sounds so professional too. They want to police your memes. This is a direct attack on Kekistan, guys. This cannot stand. They want a cross-platform effort to standardize reporting that could coordinate and align with work by UN Women. So they want to be in charge of this, dudes. They want to be in charge of how all the social media out there, all the different websites, work together with them as the leader, them as the bosses, to stop you from memeing women on the internet. How dare you? How dare you? To develop a statistical framework for TFGBV.
What?
Let's see, TF.
TF. The fuck?
Yeah. The fuck gender-based violence. No, it's probably terrorist something, or no, it's technologically facilitated or technology facilitated gender.
Get the fuck out of here. These people are not real. They are not real.
Technology facilitated gender-based violence.
I just can't. Go away. God damn it. Find a life.
But it's me again, Margaret. You have to know your Ray Stevens. And if you do, stay away from the peach preserves. Yeah, so technology facilitated. This is what happens when you threaten to shoot a feminist in the face with your camera.
And what the fuck is the difference between online technology?
So the
What?
and Margaret was a line from a song by I just said, damn it. Anyway, about a crank caller, an obscene phone caller.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and yeah, if you Ray Stevens, you know, he had the Streak, and he had Mississippi Squirrel Revival, and on the same greatest hits album that those songs were on was this song. There once was a fellow named Willard McBain, and he only had just one thought on his brain. And you know, and it goes on, and he would go find a pay telephone and call this one woman up, and that was the portrayal. It's me again, Margaret. He was basically making fun of obscene callers, because what the fuck is going through your head when you call someone up, and your biggest kick that you get in life is heavy breathing into the phone, or you know, like at one of the lines of I bet you can't guess what I'm doing. And like I had crank callers when I was young. Back in the day when your phone sat on a table and there was a cord sticking out of one end of it that plugged into the wall, and the limit of how you could walk around your house was the other cord, the curly cord, and how far you could take the cradle or the handset away from the cradle. And, which, if you're my age, the phone itself might have actually been mounted on the wall. Ours was for a long time, was mounted on the wall between the kitchen and the family room. Yes, now they're colloquially referred to as a landline. And we got fun calls like, yeah, we got the "Is your refrigerator running? You better go catch it." What are you wearing? An Uzi. The best thing to do if it is like, I got crank calls from boys in my class, right? So you answer the phone and they think they're being funny and everything, and you're like, "Oh, hi, Joe." Click. That was the time. And then you got caller ID came along, and that kind of put the kibosh to a lot of it, because you didn't know who had it and who didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was historical technology facilitated gender-based violence.
HTFGB. Oh, shut the fuck up! I hate these people.
I wonder if back in the day, before telephones were invented, if anybody ever sent an obscene telegram. How much did that cost?
There was an old man named Michael Finnegan. He grew whiskers on his chinnigan. The wind came out and blew them in again. Poor old Michael Finnegan begin again. I feel personally attacked by this as someone who is named Michael, albeit not named Michael Finnegan. But as a Michael, I have to speak up for my own people.
You're very close.
The wind did not blow my whiskers in again. How dare you?
You're very close, Michael Stevenson.
It's
There we go.
quite close. But yeah, even as a Michael Stevenson, I have never had my whiskers blown in again. Do you have that? Do you have that song in America, or is that just
Oh yeah, in fact,
yeah,
there's a frequently advertised, like widely advertised back in the 90s and early aughts, set of children's songs that you could get. When it's such an old set that when they first started advertising it, they were selling it on cassette tape. Which for the Zoomers, Zoomers might know cassette tapes. For Gen Alpha, that's analog. It was about twice the size of a credit card, and it actually had piece of like plastic that had that had little bits electronically sort of burned into it, that when you would play it, the tape player would play the sound. and it didn't, you could accidentally tape over it and lose everything that you had on there if you were not careful.
I remember
before the ancient form of keeping things off of your computer called the CD.
Yes. I remember the days when I was a young lass, and I would, because I love music. Well, I love the music that was music before whatever the fuck this is that they call music now. But I would stay up and record on my radio, on my little pink Panasonic stereo. I would record on tapes. Like, if you didn't care about a tape, you could just record over them. And I would record songs off of the radio. And that was my shit. Oh my God, I love that shit.
You gotta understand the kind of person I am. I did that pretty much strictly with the Dr. Demento show.
Okay.
Which you gotta understand. You could hear the other stuff on the radio all day long, but the Dr. Demento show only played once a week, and the spectrum of music that was available on the Dr. Demento show, parody music that was available on the Dr. Demento show, was such that you didn't hear the same thing even every month. You might hear the same song a couple times in the same year. And so I record the whole show every week. And I used to have a whole set of tapes from that. And a lot of them I got rid of when I got the I bought the albums, the 20th anniversary and the 30th anniversary, and most of what I really liked and kept was on those. So I had like 2 or 3 tapes of Dr. Demento show episodes, parts of Dr. Demento show episodes that I really, those were important to me. And I now have just one, and it's broken, and I keep meaning to repair it. That was the big problem with cassette tapes. The plastic tape would break.
Yeah.
And there was an interview on that episode, or on that tape from one of the episodes, with Gilbert Gottfried.
Oh, wow.
That I can't find anywhere online. I can't find reference to it anywhere. I can't find anything about it anywhere. It was a great interview too. And it was, he's a comedian. He was a comedian. So the interview was a parody of a real interview. Dr. Demento would ask him questions, and he would give these ridiculous parody answers. Like, he asked him, everybody was coming out at that time with exercise tapes. And like, this was in 1992 or 93, somewhere in there. And he asked him about, making an exercise tape. And he went off about wanting to have a body like Sid Caesar. And then he went on and described, his exercise tape as basically how to be a couch potato, and it was a full description. It was great. And then Dr. Demento asked him what you're going to name your exercise tape, and he goes, Howard, like classic Gilbert Gottfried. But the part that I want from it, that I really need to repair this tape so I have this and can actually put it online because it doesn't seem to exist anywhere, was him explaining how to get rid of Madonna. And in the early 90s, Madonna was extremely controversial. She was like, I don't know, almost like a Disney villain of music. And it was partly because she was a provocateur, right? And then it was partly because she was so sexual, and it was partly because what the fuck, Madonna. But in any case, he said, that the way to get rid of Madonna, the way to end her career, was essentially to just accept everything that she does. Okay, that's great, Madonna. Go ahead, And he went on and gave like these escalating examples. And at one point, I'm killing some little baby kittens. Okay, Madonna, you go, girl. That kind of thing. And I thought that was hilarious at the time, and it resonated with me at the time, but it wasn't happening at the time, right? But a few years later, along came Britney Spears.
Mm.
Right? And she was like a train wreck in public at the same time as being highly sexualized and very controversial in a lot of ways. And people stopped paying attention to Madonna. Like Britney Spears came along, and then Lady Gaga came along. And between the two of them, nothing Madonna did was abnormal anymore.
Yeah.
And that what he predicted happened. Madonna would do stuff and people would be like, oh yeah, that's kind of like Lady Gaga. Oh yeah, that's kind of like Britney Spears. And, she's sitting there going, I'm the original. And if she left the country. That was it. She was like, I think she was already in the UK at that point.
And she was never the original, because women have been given that appointment as a pop star. Like, I mean, literally forever, for as long as pop music has existed. Way back to the 50s, way back to the 30s, way back to like 100 fucking years ago. Women have always been afforded the opportunity to be pop starlets. And yet feminists are still telling us, oh, women have never been given that affordance to be fucking musical icons.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, they always have. They've never been denied these rights. They've never been denied these opportunities, like for like 1,000 years, and even 1,000 years before that, even the days before romantic chivalry, even in the days of the Greeks and the Romans, women were still afforded the opportunity to wow the populace in these ways. And the idea that they never have been is bollocks.
It's
a
bullshit.
lie. It's always
There's always been some woman that's famous for being a boundary pusher.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what Gottfried was basically pointing out was that if you took away the resistance of those boundaries, Madonna would become irrelevant. And what happened when you had Britney Spears, you had Lady Gaga, I noticed Night Motorcycles, mentioning Christina Aguilera. You had a bunch of different chicks came out with various ways of pushing boundaries that encompassed all of the ways that Madonna was a boundary pusher in the 80s and the 90s. And it really did kind of make her functionally irrelevant. The thing that was her shtick, she was no longer the best at it. She was no longer even all that much at it. Nothing she did was extreme anymore.
Oh,
And
but
that
she
was
she is currently fighting tooth and nail to still have
be
some
relevant.
sort of relevance. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just sad. It's sad to look at her now. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, even if you did like her, and I did. I was into it before I really understood what her whole thing was, and
Yeah.
now it's just pathetic to see her um try
Yep.
to maintain relevance. I mean, she has uh I mean, her face doesn't even look anything like it used to.
No.
And it's just
And now
sad.
it's
And
sad
yeah, she's just
because she was a pretty girl.
she really was. But
And she had some pipes. I know she probably still does. Like, I couldn't hold a candle, right?
yeah.
But and if she had made herself all about her talent, which Madonna had immense talent.
Mhm.
It's just that there were several women that in pop music that had immense talent at that time, and many, many men. Um, but yeah, I like the way Mangaka put it. She lost in a harlotocracy. That's so that's sad because that was like the least thing about her. I liked the "Let's Hear It for the Boy" Madonna. I
Did
liked
she do that song? I don't think she
yep,
did that song.
that was
That was Denise
wasn't it?
Williams. That was
I'm
Denise
okay,
Williams.
you're
Yeah,
right.
let's hear it for the boy.
They sounded a lot alike though, but that time period, she was doing Material Girl, Like a
Mhm.
Virgin.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, one of the first songs I taped after the Dr. Demento show actually was Like a Surgeon, which, I reused that tape because I think the third Weird Al song I heard on the Dr. Demento show, I just went out and got Weird Al's tapes. Um, but you're right, that was not Madonna, but they had that similar high pitched, and there's a little bit of sand in it, but not enough to really sound sandy.
Yeah.
Um, and Cyndi Lauper had a similar. Hers was a little smoother, her voice,
Mhm.
um, and I think she was less controversial too, because where Madonna approached it from "You must accept my harlotry," Cyndi Lauper approached it from "Look how much fun this is,"
Yeah.
and she didn't become irrelevant. She just kind of
Well,
she kind of
she
moved
was
on to other things.
yeah, she wasn't in competition, and the thing about Madonna is that she was always in competition with Michael Jackson
Yeah,
because she always wanted to be the biggest pop star, and
and that
you
was
could
really dumb because there's no competing with Michael
there
Jackson.
is no competing with Michael Jackson, and but she like really. And I know, like, know people in the music industry. Like, I have family in the music industry, and that's so it's that is exactly what she was doing. She was
Yeah,
trying to compete with Michael Jackson. That that thirst for fame, um, it ends up killing a lot of people. And
yeah,
and so now here she is in she's gotta be in her 70s. If she's
yeah.
not in her maybe 60s, late 60s, I'm telling
Well,
you,
she was an adult when I was I want to say junior high. maybe high school. I don't know. She was an adult by the time I was old enough to start really enjoying her music. She was performing when I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
But she's
But
up there. And now look at what she's doing. She's
yeah.
gotten all of the plastic surgery that you can imagine, right? She's still out there touring. And she's dating like someone, I forget the guy's name, but he's like at least 30 or 40 years younger than she is, you know? And
Yeah.
I just,
Fernando Caballero says
y-
Madonna looks like an exhibit from Madame Tussauds come to life. Like, oh God.
Well, so did Michael Jackson, to be fair.
Yeah, Michael Jackson. That was heartbreaking too, because he was a hottie when I was in the 6th grade. That was the first album I ever wanted, and the first thing that I actually spent my money on, my earned money on, that wasn't a book, was the Thriller album.
yeah.
And like that was so sad when he started changing his face.
Well, I mean, to be fair, a lot of people don't really realize, but he actually did have vitiligo.
Yeah, I
And
know.
so, obviously it would make sense for him to try to even out his skin tone. But I don't,
That
I don't know by what means he was doing that. People say he was bleaching his skin. It could be, I don't know. But that's
Yeah.
not the thing. Like, he could have kept his original face,
Yeah.
and still have gone through that, and people still would have loved him, but when he just started with all the plastic surgery and, changing his
Yeah.
hair and all that shit, that was just so unnecessary, because we loved him for his talent, not for the way that he looked. We loved
Yeah.
him for his musical talent, his ability to dance, you know
Yeah.
um
Well, and
and
he was an original. Like Madonna always would have said she was an original, but Michael Jackson was an original,
he
and he
absolutely
originated
was.
so much. Like there's a reason they call him the king of pop.
Yeah,
And
no.
the fact is, you're right. The voice, his voice was magical.
Mhm.
But the thing that that gets me, like you mentioned, he had vitiligo. Like, and I've seen people with it that haven't been able to do any changes to their skin and everything. He also had, I think, scarring from his hair caught on fire in the
Yeah,
filming of a Pepsi commercial,
yeah.
which
It's very possible that he died in that incident, and
and was
the
replaced.
imposters,
Yeah,
the
Oh,
imposters that
shut
we've
up.
been replaced with ever
that's a
since.
that's yeah. But in
I mean,
any
how
case,
many Michael
it's a
Jackson
possibility.
impersonators do we have around these days? They wander around the subway,
What percentage
fucking
of the
getting
population is
Daniel Perry
represented
arrested.
by
Like this.
Michael Jackson impersonators? Actually, but yeah, that. So I understand why that may have happened, and it's a traumatic experience too, especially like
It's sort
it's
of
one
tempting
thing
to.
when
It's
my
sort of
hair caught on fire, which did happen. This it wasn't during a filming of a commercial. I was actually it was in the middle of a pagan ceremony, and I stood too close to a candle, and my hair is 3 feet long, and it was dry and staticky, and a bunch of it was like fanning out behind me because of the static, and it caught fire, and I lost a chunk of hair, like it just boom. And I don't use product of any kind. I don't use any hairspray, gel, anything like that. All of those things are flammable. They're highly flammable. So it would have been harder to put out. What happened with me was the guy beside me just reached over and ran his hand down my hair, and it put it out. But if you had stuff in your hair to make it behave itself, then it caught on fire, then it might be much more difficult to put it out. So that would explain the scarring. But in any case, yeah, it still made me sad to see his face change, because I liked his face too.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
magical as his voice was, I liked his face too.
It's tempting
And
to say that it's a good thing Elvis Presley didn't have the option to go through such an undignified death, going through that facial reconstruction surgery. But he had a different undignified death because he died on the toilet because he fucking ate too much and fucking had a heart attack on the toilet.
Yeah. Well, and then
that's what normally happens to pop stars.
He had a bunch of health problems too. That there's various medications that they put you on for those, and some of those medications are rough on your heart. And like, actually, a lot of heart attacks happen on the toilet. Little known fact: this is something that I was taught in anatomy and physiology. There is a nerve in your bowels that can upset your heart. So if you already have a predisposition to have a heart attack, and you are at some point going to have a heart attack, the chances that it will happen when you are straining to deal with constipation are higher than the chances that it will happen at any other like resting point during the day. Wow. So if you have a heart condition, take stool softeners. Just eat lots of fresh fruit. Just a little bit of advice. Do
fiber,
not eat
people, fiber.
American diet. Yeah, fiber.
Fiber is your friend.
Unripe bananas and kefir, good friends. But anyway, we have strayed way off.
If you're determined to be famous, then you're probably going to have an unusual death, like Elvis did, like Michael Jackson did, and like Madonna is probably going to have at some point.
Hopefully soon.
But the reason they got so famous in the first place is because they were so determined to be famous, and it stands to reason that that when they do die, it's going to be tragic.
That's true about Elvis, but Michael Jackson was made famous.
Well, he was killed as well.
Yes.
That's a whole other thing. Sorry,
in any case, Michael Jackson was famous before he was old enough to consent to fame.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
And as much as the music that he created when he was young is valuable and wonderful and beautiful, that was abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's not fair to do that to a kid. It's he didn't get to be a kid. He never got to be just a kid.
Yeah,
that's not fair. But in any case, going back to what we were talking about, and then we'll cover this last paragraph, and then we'll leave the rest for next week. But this last bit, platforms should consult and collaborate with gender-based violence and feminist advocates. So what's a gender-based violence advocate? Is that like somebody that goes around and tells you to beat your husband or beat your wife? Like, wouldn't it be a gender-based violence response advocate?
Well, that's what they're calling us, the infamous men's rights advocates. That's what we do. Apparently, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I would beat my husband, but he doesn't like beets, so I just eat them myself. I particularly like the red ones. By the way, if you ever have to feed a baby and you feed the child strained beets, just remember later when the child poops that you did feed the child strained beets. Do not panic when it looks like the child is pooping blood, because it will. Just saying. Yeah. So they want platforms. They want X and Facebook and even MySpace to consult and collaborate with them, they're feminist advocates, scholars, and victim survivors. So people who say that they were abused with lived experience when developing the methodology of transparency. How are we going to report this? Well, these people get to tell us what to say. These people get to tell us what counts. These people get to tell us what we're talking about. And they want user surveys to be involved. You want to get asked on social media about gender-based violence? You think they'd count my answers? I get misgendered every day. At a minimum, platforms should be transparent. So they want everybody to tell everybody else how they're doing this.
I'm just, I can't fuck these people and their terminology. Your lived experience. No, you don't have experience when you're dead, you mother. What? My lived experience. I lived through this. Yes, it's
Yeah.
just experience. It's just life. It's just what we all go through. It's my lived experience. Shut up. You're gonna go through shit. I'm sorry that nobody ever explained to you that life is difficult and you might experience some things that are not so pleasant, right? And they never taught you how to handle some mean words online that you can't just turn off and back away from. No, Jesus Christ. Jesus
I have lived
Christ.
with being oppressed by men. Oh, you're so brave to have lived with being oppressed by men. And then when men say, I have lived with being occasionally marginalized by women. Ah, how dare you? What are you saying? You've been oppressed by women? You can't say that. How very dare you? And all that sort of shit.
Yeah.
Yep. So we are to the point where they're now going to advocate. They want people who claim to be victims of online gender-based violence to dictate what these platforms have to do, and that will be what we will start covering next week. Well, when we get through this part, this gives us an idea, like what they're advocating here. And so we basically got like another page and 2 pages here of what they want to tell social media outlets to do. I'm not going to go over the rest of the report. We went over some definitions last week, and we're going to go over this. And then we will be looking at what they mentioned in this paragraph here, because that is part of this Act to End Violence Against Women and Girls program. And of course, it's written in not American English, so I want to read it programmy. But it's program generously supported by the government of Iceland and the European Union. So this is, like I said, we're not going over this because these women are funny. We're going over this because this is a systematic, institutionalized effort at suppressing your speech all over the world, paid for by the European Union and Iceland. So with that, let me double check and see if I have any, because I am not actually looking at the right chat to know. I went down into the chat that I used to transfer that picture or that link. There we go. It's the Super Chow channel. 8:29 p.m. We got a super chat or Super Chow from In Summerfield. Gave us $5 and said, "But Hannah, don't you know we must be able to protect the women's, so we can scrape your data to protect the women's, to scrape your data." And yeah, that's essentially what this is. They're essentially using protect the women's to bypass your right to privacy and your right to freedom of speech and freedom of association.
That sounds invasive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to scrape your data.
Yeah,
Ugh.
it sounds like gender-based online violence.
Oh no! Oh
Does this mean I'm gonna get in trouble for that meme that I have about you have just been slapped with a fish?
no! Yes, yes.
I'm doomed. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks to my two co-hosts for going through this nasty ass shit with me. And for the well-rounded and wandering conversation tonight. And yes, IRC trout slapping. And thanks to everybody who works in the background to make HBR talk happen, especially Brian, who has to put up with me going overtime like half the time. Sorry about that. And good night, all.
We will see you next Thursday.
We will.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.